Well, Oguz Demir now joins us. He is the director of the EU Research Center. Oguz, good to have you with us. For our viewers around the world, remind us what changes could potentially be made given a yes vote to this constitution.
You know, if you consider the whole package, there are several changes. But to keep it simple and to understand easily, it's a shift from the parliamentary system to presidential system. And some of the powers which has been delegated to the parliament are now transferred to the executive administration. And now the head of the executive administration will be the president instead of prime minister. That will be the main change after the referendum, if the yes vote or yes campaign will win the election.
Let's talk outcomes here for a second. If a yes vote emerges, what happens next?
Now, as I said, the president was a symbolic position in the current system. If the election will have a yes vote, now the president will be the head of the executive administration. So he will create the cabinet, he will assign the ministers, and he will have some other powers about the executive administration process. And Parliament will lose some of its powers to the president if the yes vote will be in charge.
But what would be the next steps, essentially? Because we know that those changes wouldn't go into effect until 2019.
Yeah, to be honest, until 2019, it's just have some effects on the political agenda, because there will be some discussions about, you know, what will happen for the next 2 years. We're not very sure about that. But to be honest, you know, in 2019, we will have the presidential system. That's what we're going to know. But apart from that, for the next 2 years, nobody is sure about how the system will function while it will be waiting for change. So it's not very clear for all of us. We're just knowing that we're going to switch to a new system, which is presidential, if the yes vote wins. And apart from that, we're going to just see how the politicians will react based on the results of the referendum.
Okay. I know we're playing hypothetical here,
yeah.
And we talked about the potential of a yes outcome.
Yeah.
What about the possibility of a no outcome? What would happen?
The current system will continue. The status quo will be effective again. But of course, there will be some political impacts if no vote will win. But as I said, you know, we are not very sure how the politicians will react after the results will be announced. So there might be some change in the opposition, in the government. You know, everything is possible after that point, but we know that the system will remain the same as we have now. That's the outcome of the no, technically.
And what about Turkey's relationship with the EU? How could the referendum potentially have an impact on that?
You know, both in Europe and Turkey and everywhere in the world, when the election process will come, everybody starts to dig deeper about those political conflicts. And in this election process, we saw the same thing in Turkey, just like we saw we're now seeing in France or in Germany or in Netherlands. You know, the national populism a little bit getting more popular within the society. So both parties are using this tool as a political leverage. But at the end of the elections, I think that this always happens because the politicians will notice that the real politics is not the same as the election process. So they're going to sit around the table and we'll discuss the real problems to be solved. I think it's going to be calming down and going back to its already slowed down process. So the tension will be less, and we're going to discuss our main problems like Syrian refugees, like the negotiations, like visa-free regime, and the deal about the Syrian refugees in Turkey. So I think we're going to turn back to the real politics again after the election process will be over.
Oguz Demir, thank you so much for being with us, sharing your insight on this very historic day. Appreciate it.